Alright guys, what's up? It's been a while since I made the first video in this little series about the solar box. So while I was doing the solar box or building it, I actually wrote down a list of some things for everyone to follow if they decide to build one of these. Like, I'm not a solar expert or anything. I was just inspired by, again, SolarBurrito, which is a guy you can find on YouTube. SolarBurrito is the one who inspired me to do this, just to have a little portable, solar charged power center, basically. And I've seen a lot of other people's on YouTube, but most of those are you have to recharge them by hooking them up to a battery or plugging them in or something like that. You do see some solar charged battery packs, but not very many, in my opinion, that are actually portable. Like, I've seen some of them that are mounted to dollies, or they're mounted to like a big ice chest or something like that. And I mean, they're awesome because you can power a lot of stuff. You can, power a refrigerator in your house, like during a storm, or you could, power an air conditioner, maybe, on some of those that have the higher capacity batteries and bigger panels and all that. But what I mainly wanted was something for like when we go camping, or sometimes the power goes out around here a lot because we live kind of out in the country. So if the power goes out, I want to be able to recharge my cell phone. And I also have the option to hook up an inverter. Even though the inverter really, on this one, the inverter would only last about 15 minutes because both of my batteries together equal out to 20 amp hours. And as an electrician, personally, I did all the calculations on everything in this box, and having an inverter hooked up, a 400 watt inverter, maybe 10 or 15 minutes it's going to run. That's it. And then it's going to fully drain these batteries. So I'm not really looking to do that. Mainly my thing is to have light where I can carry it around and turn on lights like at nighttime. To have an external 12 volt source to hook up other accessories, such as like LED rope lights that are 12 volt powered. Also having a cigarette lighter adapter, because there's tons of things on the market you can buy. For example, they have a cigarette lighter heated blanket that you could plug a heated blanket in there. And I'm not sure on the amperage on something like that or how long it would last, but it's pretty cool. I mean, they've got fans you can plug in there, like automotive fans you can plug in there and keep yourself cool in a tent. So that's basically what I wanted. So now I've kind of written down a bunch of things I want to go over with you guys, or suggestions I have if you want to make one of these solar boxes. So without further ado, I'll show you what mine looks like. And once again, shout out to SolarBurrito. If he watches this video, man, you're gonna see where I got my inspiration. So here we go. All right, so here's my solar box. It's got LED lights on the side. Here's my plug-in, my SAE plug that is for my solar panel to charge up. I've got a couple of external 12 volt banana jacks for extra power for something else I might want to add later. I've got fans, two 40 millimeter computer fans in the front, two 40 millimeter computer fans in the back. They're LED fans. Those are fan guards. Basically, the fans, when you turn them on, it pulls air in the back and blows it out the front to keep the batteries and stuff cool on the inside. But more about that here in a minute. These are my light switches right here. For the lights on this side, they have this switch. For the lights on this side, they have this switch. And basically, that's if you're carrying this somewhere, like you're walking through the woods, I can flip this on and it'll help me see where I'm walking. Or you know, I'm carrying it with this hand, I can flip these on. You know, I can see where I'm walking at nighttime, and I've already used them. We went camping last weekend, and it actually helped. So anyway, I kind of did what SolarBurrito was talking about. You know, I attached my solar panel using Velcro, and I used these little 2-inch wide aluminum strips that I got from Home Depot, and some machine screws, and I used what's called a countersink bit to kind of drill out the holes a little bit to flatten them out so those machine screws would fit in there. If you don't know what a countersink bit is, basically it's a little bit that wallows out the hole a little bit and helps the screws sink down flat. Alright, so here's the inside. I'll show you. Alright, let's see here. So with mine, I've got over here, these are my banana jack switches. One for this side, one for this side. You know, and again, those aren't for anything specific, just anything I want to add that needs external 12-volt power. I've got my charge controller here. Got my USB ports, the two ports, 36-watt USB. I've got the 200-watt cigarette lighter. Most of them you see on the market are like, I think they're 150 watts, but I went with the bigger one, as well as the USB. Most of those are lower wattage. This is the higher wattage, 36 watt. Those are both controlled by switches here. If you open this also has an extra switch, which I don't really care about. It just came with it, and it was no big deal. I mean, I guess you can get one without that switch, but it was whatever. I just ordered whatever I wanted. And here's my, just like SolarBurrito, I've got my main power switch right here. So I kick that on. Oh, my fans are already on, so you can see those. And what's cool is the fans on the back, of course, they light up as well. Those are the ones on the back. What's cool, it's kind of a neat little feature, having these fans on, since they're pulling air from the back to the front. If you're standing right here, you get a nice little cool breeze as well. So I kind of knew that I wanted to do that. That way, if I had this sitting up somewhere, like in the summertime, you know, it's a little cool breeze. It's not much, but hey, it's something. And then here you go. I've got this is my battery capacity and my temperature gauge. My temperature gauge is attached to the main positive lead on my parallel batteries. That way, if it starts heating up for some reason, I can just kick the fans on. But I'll go ahead and turn those off. This kicks on, it tells me my battery capacity percentage, and oh, you can see, there you go, 70 degrees in here right now. So basically that turns on. This is USB, of course, turns on. Then you can turn it off here. It's just a slight little touch button, or you can just, you know, use the same little switch here. Also, you can see a charge controller. So basically that's it with mine. I can kind of show you underneath. The main thing, the hardest thing here to do in all of this, in my opinion, is the wiring. And as an electrician myself, I have a lot of experience in wiring, so it wasn't too bad for me. But anyone else, I'm going to kind of give you some tips here in a minute. Also, the top of this, I've seen a lot of people using wood. Okay, this is, I know it's kind of dirty right now. I need to clean it off. But this is actually chalkboard. It's wood chalkboard that's about, I think it's about a little less than a 1/4 inch thick. It comes in full sheets, actually, from Home Depot. Sorry, I got a mess going on here, but you can see it right there. There's a whole sheet. It comes in like a 2x4 sheet from Home Depot. And all I did was I used a Dremel. I made a pattern with I cut out a piece of cardboard first, set it in there, and I kind of drew around, made a pattern. Then I cut out the cardboard and kind of you know, cut little pieces off here and there. Started at one end and kind of, you know, I would shave a little bit off and then fit it down in there one at a time, you know, little piece at a time. And finally, once I got it, then I transferred that cardboard to the full sheet of the chalkboard and just made an outline of it and cut it out with a Dremel using a router bit. So it's kind of hard if you don't have a Dremel. It'd be kind of hard to do that. Maybe you could use a jigsaw, or a I don't know. I mean, you could figure out maybe a bandsaw. Well, I don't know, maybe a bandsaw. You guys kind of figure that out on your own. But anyways, I want to show you this wiring. I've done my wiring a little different than everybody else. Yeah, that looks insane. I know. Well, this kind of popped off here. There's a lot of wiring that goes into this. For me to make it safe and make it up to my standards as an electrician, I did my calculations, my amperage and voltage, everything. I calculated everything in here. That way I would know exactly what size wire to use for every component, to use for the batteries or any future components, what I would be wanting to use in this thing. And also I've got a lot of inline fuses. Like I've got these glass inline fuses. I've got regular inline blade fuse. That's my main fuse to my battery. You know, here's my fuse bus. Basically you have your main power wire that goes here, and it fuses each component out of that. And it'll also kind of pop up if one of the fuses is bad. This little light will come on. It'll tell you if fuse is bad and that you might have some problems. Here's my ground bus. You can find those on Amazon. They're pretty cheap. As you can see, it comes with this pre-made little jumper that has like some type of heat shrink on it already. And then I've just kind of made my own ground connections. And another thing I did was I used heat shrink on everything. You know, it took me forever to do this, but it's heat shrink on everything. Also, I have connections here. Instead of everybody else just wiring straight to the switch or straight to the components. That's my temperature sensor off my thermometer. Anyway, instead of wiring direct to the components, I've actually put in these male and female disconnects. Basically what that does is this right here can actually separate. I can take that apart anytime I want. All of this is done with male and female disconnects. You can see the larger ones for the 12 gauge wire. You know, I got disconnects on almost everything. And the reason why I did that is if I ever want to change anything on this, or if I ever feel like I want to add something, or maybe do something bigger and use these components again, and I can take this apart essentially and still have those pieces, and I don't have to worry about recutting and stripping and, you know, having to redo everything. But anyways, essentially what I've got here is two 10 amp hour batteries. They're the matte glass lead acid batteries, so basically they can be mounted in any configuration. That's why they're down on their sides. You can see them laying flat. This right here is what's called a nail plate. If you're an electrician or a guy in construction, you'll know what nail plates are. Anyway, it's a nail plate that it's a 1 foot long nail plate that I've cut in half, and I've used one piece here to hold the battery down, one piece here. And basically all it has is, you can't see it because I put electrical tape over the top of it, but it has machine screws going down through the bottom. On the bottom of the case, they come up. They're like 3.5 inch long machine screws. They come up, and then I have lock nuts on here. And that's how I've got my batteries held in. And they're sturdy, man. I mean, I took this thing camping, and I had 0 issues with movement. I mean, the thing worked great. Yeah, I mean, this thing's awesome. Back here, you can see my fans. They ended up fitting perfectly in between my two batteries. I really had to search for fans to find 40mm fans with LED lights, because I really wanted them to light up because I think it looks pretty cool. Also, my master switch is right here. You know, my main power that's coming from my charge controller is fused right here with a 20 amp fuse. Comes down, also it's on a disconnect, so I can take this out anytime I want. Anyways, this comes down and hits my main feed, which goes to my power switch, as well as my fuse block. So basically that's how I get my power. There's all different sorts of ways you can wire this. I kind of drew a wiring diagram. I'm going to share that with you guys the way I did it. I know this looks really confusing, especially to somebody that has never wired something up before. I know it looks confusing. Even when I started looking at it as an electrician, when I first started looking at everyone else's boxes they had done, I was confused. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm used to like commercial buildings and houses and AC voltage. This is DC voltage, so this was really new to me. So I had to really sit down and think, and I had to find all my components and how much amperage they were going to draw, and I had to basically sit down and do electrical calculations to figure this out. So anyway, that's the inside. You can see kind of how everything works. I will just go over a few things. So in the last one I said I was going to use an inverter. Yeah, I decided not to do that. I decided the batteries weren't big enough, and that if I wanted to, since I have those disconnects in there, I could actually add one in an emergency. But that's going to be few and far between. But anyways, another thing I would like to say is, whenever you're bolting stuff down, like these little machine screws, I used thread locker. I would recommend that to everyone, because you don't want these things backing up. You can kind of see that. See that red? It looks like a red dry liquid. That's called thread locker. That's so none of these will, you know, basically it kind of glues the screw and nut together so it won't back out. And that's what you want. You don't want it coming apart. Also, if you're going to do one of these, check your sizes of your batteries. Check your length, width, and height. I mean, check how everything goes together before you start buying stuff. Because if you get stuff that doesn't fit, then what do? You know, I was really lucky that this came up to the bottom of that. You know, it got really close. Or else my flat panel wouldn't have set on there correctly. Also, to fit those fans in there, I got really lucky because of how long these batteries were. Also, you need to look at some of this Chinese stuff that comes in, because these lights, these LED lights in particular, the hot wire, or my power wire, was actually the white wire, which normally it would be your black. So it ended up being my white. And then, you know, I got other lights. As for instance, I'm making a little small one for my wife here. And this is just a little small. On this one, these lights here, the black was my hot. So you need to test all your components before you, like I would suggest, I had a little battery sitting down here. This is my battery out of my fishing boat. I had it sitting down there, so I basically like tested each thing that I got in one at a time. I just kind of hook it up just to dry test it and make sure what goes where. Also, make some test wires. That's another thing. Mine are right here. I made these. It just has little gator clips. They call these gator clips on the end. They're little spring-loaded clips. You can buy a whole package of them at Harbor Freight. And you can just get some wire, strip it, and just clamp it in there. Make those, because those will help you test components when you got everything in here. Also, you don't have to use heat shrink connectors, but I recommend it. It's just better. It just makes a better connection. These are little heat shrink connectors that I got from Harbor Freight. Again, here's my disconnects, male and female. These are the male ones. Those are the female ones. I use those. Those are for 12 gauge wire. You want some of those. You're gonna need a lot of different connectors and stuff. This is a box I have around. You don't need this entire box. This is just a box of little electrical components that I use on job sites and stuff. But you can get stuff like this at Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight's your friend in all this. Like, look, here's all this big box of heat shrink. I think this was like $8 at Harbor Freight. Also, they got these there. They're watertight heat shrink connectors. Also, if you're going to do heat shrink, you need a small torch. That's to shrink it down. I've got different sizes of wire in here. Also, you can order one of these. I ordered this off of Amazon. These are all glass inline fuses. It came with an entire box, all different sizes. And it came with little fuse holders, or inline fuse holders. And I think this thing was like $10, man. I mean, go on Amazon, do some research. You can find stuff cheap. These switches I just got the other day because I'm doing my wife's little power box here, and they're all different colors of LED. They got blue, yellow, green, red, and I think this whole thing was like $10. Just go on Amazon. Also, like I said before, your grounding buses. Look, this whole bag came with a bunch of different size buses, and it came with all the little jumpers. Again, Amazon. I think it was like $10 or $15. Yeah, you see my strippers in here. A pair of my strippers. We all like strippers, right? I've just got different components in here. I mean, little connectors. I didn't end up needing these. I just oh, here's some more of those male and female disconnects, except these are for the smaller wire. This is what color they are. Those are the males. I only have a few left, but I got those on Amazon as well. I think they were $10 for the pair. It's like 100 of each male, 100 females. You can also buy these on Amazon. This is what's called an SAE connector, and that's what my connection is on the side for my solar panel. Here, you can buy it, and it comes like this. It comes with a female end on it, and then it has the male end on the other side, but I've cut that off because I'm making it for my wife's. Yeah, here it is. I'm making my wife's battery box. So on one end is this, on the other end is this, and it's basically designed so you can cut it in half and wire it up to whatever you need. Yeah, so get you a Dremel tool. You're gonna need a Dremel tool. I'm gonna go over some other things. Yeah, glass fuses are real good to have. They're cheap. Let's see here. Yeah, get all your ampacities so you can size your fuses and your wire correctly. So what I mean by ampacity is that's basically how much power your components are going to use. It should have the ampacity ratings. Like when you go buy a certain component, like say you buy that USB plug, it should have your amp ratings, ampacity or amp ratings somewhere in the information section. That way you know how many amps it's going to pull. That way you can size your wire correctly and your fuse correctly. You're going to need to know that stuff. If you don't know how to do that, there's all kinds of stuff on Google about that. Just Google's your friend here. Yeah, use heat shrink. Also, you want to get one of these. It's basically a hobby knife. They're also called X-Acto knives. X-Acto is like the biggest name brand one that they make, but it's a knife with different blade heads. and they're all really sharp, like razor sharp. And basically you're going to need that thing a lot. I use the heck out of it. I mean, every one of these little holes that I drilled, I kind of took that knife, I would go back with that knife and kind of shave off the little excess so it didn't look like shit when I was done. So you're going to need one of those for sure. And also, I see a lot of guys using hole saws to drill the holes for your fuses and stuff like that. I didn't use a hole saw. I used what's called a paddle bit. These are paddle bits. Should turn you around here. These are paddle bits. This is just an old set I got laying around. I got this thing when I was a kid, I think, and it's just kind of been sitting around my whole life. It came with these little paddle bits. The 13/16 is the perfect size for these switches, these little rocker switches. 13/16 is awesome. Use paddle bits. Go slow. Take your time. What I did too was I had this little plastic tub laying around. So what I did was I drilled holes first to test and make sure that the switch would fit in there before I started drilling any type of holes in my chalkboard. You don't really need a saw like this. I mean, you could do it with small tools. I have a lot of tools, so I've just been getting stuff over the years. But if you can get some basic tools, I would get, like a little set like this. I think I got this at Lowe's for like 20 bucks. Craftsman set. And it has, it has drill bits. I've used every one of these drill bits almost on this. It has a single paddle bit there. It's got wood bits. It's got masonry bits. I mean, this thing is nice to have around, as well as, some paddle bits. You'll need strippers, wire strippers. They don't have to be these. These are the ones I use at work. It's a brand new set because I blew my other ones up. But yeah, you can use, strippers like these. These are residential electrician strippers. You can use something like that as long as it's the right wire size. You can use, this has 15 different types of bits in it. You can use that. You're going to need that for when you're putting in your machine screws. Get you, a drill if you got one. You're going to need wire. Machine screws. What I mean by that is these type of screws here. You can get them at Lowe's and Home Depot in their hardware section. That's basically what's holding in everything here. Like you can see right here. The only different screws that I have are these right here that are holding down my chalkboard, and those are a little bit bigger. I got some glue coming out of there. I need to cut that off. But these are little, I just put these on here last night because the problem that I had with this when we took it camping is that these machine heads that were sticking through the bottom were real sharp and they were cutting things. So I found these little covers. They're like bolt covers. They clip together, and then I glued them. I just glued them last night. Put some glue on here, so I'm gonna cut all that off. That's just from yesterday. But other than that, basically what I have is, here's my wiring diagram. It's kind of a janky one. I just kind of drew it. But yeah, if you can see that, I put some notes on there for you. You can see everything on here kind of, I've got switches here labeled. I've got the wire size labeled for each component. Switches. I've got the fuse block drawn here. I've got fuses drawn on here. Here's a fuse, and then I wrote the fuse size, 20 amp. This is just a little thing, I'm showing all three of those wires are connected together. And let's see right here, it's just kind of showing you how my solar panel is fused before it hits my charge controller. And then basically it's showing you my positive and negative connections. This is my load side of my charge controller. You don't want to use that. See some people using that. You don't want to use that. You want to come straight to the battery and then put your components at the end of that. So yeah, there's my ground bar, banana jacks, front lights, rear lights, USB plug. And I put some stuff down here. I wrote my amperage on each thing, and I kind of upsized some of this too. Like my lights on the front and rear, there's no way those lights are ever gonna pull 2 amps. No way. They may pull like half an amp, but it was one of the smaller blade fuses I had at the time, so I just put a 2.5 amp. But you can use, like I said before, you can use those glass fuses, man. This is where they come in handy because they go down way smaller. Look, they got 0.1 amps, half an amp, 1 amp, 2 amps. I mean, I could put those, honestly, on those little lights, they're probably, I mean, half an amp is probably more than adequate. Yeah, size everything based on individual component ampacity. Also consider wire ampacity. The same goes for switches. Yes. Oh, that's another thing. Your switches. These supposedly are good for 20 amps. And I don't have anything in here bigger than 20 amps. So that's why I got those. You need to look at your ampacity ratings for switches as well. But anyways, again, I want to give one more shout out to SolarBurrito, man. Thanks for inspiring me to do this. I really appreciate it. I love it. It's awesome. It was fun to build. Had a great time doing it. Anybody can build one of these. I know it looks intimidating, but it's super easy. 12-volt wiring is not that tough. You've got a positive and a negative, or a hot and a ground. That's all it is. And if you look online, it's super easy to figure it out. Like these batteries are wired in parallel. I know that seems intimidating to some people, but basically all that is you have a jumper wire from your negative of this battery to the negative of this battery. Then you have a jumper wire from the positive of this battery to the positive of this battery. And to do it right, you come off, once you do the jumper wire, once you jumper it, then you come off of that same connection and go to your ground. See how I have this? It has 2 wires going into it. So one is the jumper wire going to the other battery, and the other wire is my wire going to ground. But if you notice on the bottom down there, the positive only has 1 wire. That's because in parallel, you want to come off the opposite battery for your connections, for your final connections. What I mean by that is you do your jumpers, and then you come off of one battery for your negative wire, for your main negative, and then you come off your positive on the other battery. That way it will drain both batteries equally and charge both batteries equally. That's what you do in parallel. And parallel basically just gives me more ampacity. Basically it just lets my batteries last longer. If you wire in series, it's going to jump your voltage up. So if I wired these in series, then they would go from 12-volt batteries to 24-volt batteries, and I didn't want to do that. That's for other applications. This, you want to wire them in parallel because you want to have as much battery as possible for your components to last a long time. So look into that, parallel and series wiring for your batteries. Or you don't even got to do one as complicated as this. For your first one, do something like this. I know this looks kind of janky right now, but it's in the beginning stages. I just started working on it yesterday. All this is going to be is a cell phone charger, basically. And it's going to use this same solar panel to recharge. But look, I'm going to have these 2 lights on the front here. This will be an on-off switch for those lights for when you're carrying it, so you can just push this down and it gives you a little handheld flashlight so you can see where you're going at nighttime. Or so my wife can take it to the campground bathroom at nighttime, you know, when she's walking through the woods or whatever, so she can see. So it's going to have a light switch there and some lights. Up here, I'm going to put a battery voltage meter. That way I can tell when my battery needs to be recharged. And I'm going to put a USB plug here, a dual USB receptacle or plug. Basically, just like this one. Just like that. I'm going to put one of those right here. And I'm going to put a switch here to turn power on and off to that plug. That's it. And the inside is just going to contain a charge controller. Just this little cheap one. These are okay. They work fine. They're 10 bucks. It's going to have the charge controller. It's going to have her battery right there. And it's going to have a switch here, which it already does. And it's going to have a switch here and a USB plug right there. That's all it's going to do. And I might put like a banana jack on this side in case she wants to hook up anything else to it. Or in case we want to use it for like LED light stream inside the tent. That's another thing. You can buy LED lights, 12 volt lighting streams for like 20 bucks. You can hang those up in your tent and then just hook them to these banana jacks here, turn it on, and then you got 12 volt lighting inside your tent all night. And then the next day you just go outside and put your solar panel up, plug it in, it recharges your batteries. I mean, you can't beat that. It's really cool. So anyways, yeah, you could do something like this. And there's tons of instructional videos on YouTube about making something small like that. It's super, super easy. The hardest part is getting all the components together because this stuff's not cheap. I mean, it's a lot of the little stuff. It's not expensive. It's just there's a lot of it. You know, each one of these things is $10. Each one of these things is $10, and that adds up. You know, 10 bucks for the 2 banana jacks, 10 bucks for the grounds. You know, that's, you know, $15 for the fuse thing, $10 in fans, $10 in lights, $15 in lights, whatever, $15 charge controller, $10 charge controller. You know, all that stuff starts adding up. But man, once you get done, or once you have all this stuff together, once you buy all these things, I bought all this stuff because I intend to make more of them. So think about the future. Think about buying more stuff, just in case, so you can make more. You know, now I can make a couple of them and give them to family and friends. You know, like I said, I'm giving that one to my wife. She really wants one. After all my friends have seen this, they want one. You know, they're real fun to play. So yeah, that's kind of how I did mine. Once again, SolarBurrito, thanks man. And that's my solar box. If you guys have any questions, if you have anything you want to ask me, just say something down in the comments and I'll be able to answer you, and you know, we can go from there. And if you have any criticisms, tell me down in the comments, or if you have any suggestions, anything like that, just let me know. And it was nice hanging out with you guys, and I hope you like it. Until next time, later on.